In 2019, a group of engineers at Microsoft made a decision their employer would never publicize. They had watched for years as Windows users begged for the same things on forums, in feedback boards, in support tickets. A better way to manage Windows across multiple monitors. A search tool that actually found files. A way to rename hundreds of documents in one move. The core Windows team was not building those features. The roadmap had other priorities. So these engineers built the tools themselves, open-sourced them on GitHub, and called the project PowerToys. Microsoft signed the software with its own certificates. Microsoft paid the engineers who wrote it. Microsoft hosts the repository. And then, Microsoft said nothing about it to the people who needed it most. That decision to build the fix and bury it is what this video is about. 136,000 stars on GitHub. That is the number of developers and technically minded users who have publicly bookmarked and endorsed the PowerToys repository as of mid-2026. 136,000. To put that in context, that is more public endorsements than the vast majority of commercial software products attract in their entire lifetime, and PowerToys is free. This is not a small underground tool. This is not a hobbyist project. This is a Microsoft-signed, Microsoft-maintained, Microsoft-funded collection of utilities built by engineers employed by Microsoft, updated every single month, and available to every Windows 10 and Windows 11 user on Earth at no cost whatsoever. And yet if you walked into a Microsoft retail store today and asked a sales associate about PowerToys, there is a strong probability they would not know what you were talking about. It does not appear in Windows Update. It is not mentioned during the Windows setup process. It is not featured on the Windows 11 marketing page. It does not appear in any television advertisement Microsoft has run in recent memory. The most useful free tool Microsoft has ever built for ordinary Windows users is, functionally, invisible. 2 additional facts sharpen the picture. First, the original PowerToys suite was launched during the Windows 95 era, more than 30 years ago. Microsoft has known for 3 decades that power users need these tools. Second, the modern open-source version was revived in 2019 under the leadership of Clint Rutkus, a program manager at Microsoft who championed it precisely because the core Windows team was not delivering these features to users. Someone inside Microsoft fought to build this, and then Microsoft, as a corporation, looked the other way. The question is why? And the answer is more revealing than anything PowerToys itself can do, but I want to show you what it does first. Because the list is going to surprise you. The Windows engineering team does not measure success the same way you do. You measure success by how efficiently you can do your work on your computer. Microsoft's product teams measure success by engagement metrics, by cloud subscription uptake, by AI feature adoption, and by the degree to which Windows drives users toward Microsoft's broader commercial ecosystem. That is not a conspiracy theory. It is simply how large public companies operate. The features that make a power user more productive, a faster file rename tool, a better window snapping system, a color picker that works across every application, do not move those metrics. They do not drive Microsoft 365 subscriptions. They do not push Copilot adoption. They are useful, but they are not monetizable. And so, year after year, they do not get prioritized. PowerToys exists because Microsoft engineers felt that gap acutely. The original PowerToys was a set of utilities released alongside Windows 95 in 1996. It included things like a desktop icon toy and a CD player skin. Small experiments that showed what Windows could do if the team had time to play. That suite was eventually discontinued as Microsoft shifted its attention elsewhere. For nearly 2 decades, it was gone. Then, in 2019, the gap became impossible to ignore. A group of engineers at Microsoft, working within Microsoft's developer division, proposed reviving PowerToys as an open-source project. Clint Rutkus, then a senior program manager at Microsoft, became one of its most visible advocates. The project launched on GitHub in September 2019 with a handful of utilities, and it immediately attracted attention from developers who had been waiting for exactly this kind of thing. The community response was overwhelming. Contributors outside Microsoft began submitting code, reporting bugs, and suggesting features. The project grew steadily through the early 20s. By 2024, it contained more than 30 utilities. Today, in 2026, PowerToys is releasing version 0.99, and a version 1.0 is approaching, a milestone that for open-source software typically signals a mature, stable, production-ready product. What makes this context important is not just the timeline. It is what the timeline reveals. The people closest to Windows, the engineers who work with it every day, knew exactly what ordinary users were missing. And they built it themselves, in their own project, because the corporate roadmap would not make room for it. There is a version of this story where Microsoft is the hero. Its own engineers gave Windows users something genuinely valuable. But there is another version that is considerably darker. And I will get to that shortly. Fancy Zones is the utility that gets the most attention, and for good reason. Windows 11 has a built-in snap layout system that lets you divide your screen into halves or thirds. Fancy Zones ignores those limits entirely. You define exactly how your screen is divided, custom grid layouts, unusual ratios, overlapping zones, and then drag any window into any zone you define. For anyone working across a large monitor or multiple displays, this alone is worth the installation. PowerToys Run, now being merged into a tool called Command Palette, is a launcher. You press a keyboard shortcut, a small search bar appears, and you begin typing. It finds applications, files, settings, web searches, unit conversions, and calculator results all in one place. Windows has its own search function. PowerToys Run is what Windows Search should have been. Power Rename is a bulk file renaming tool with regex support. If you have ever tried to rename 300 files in a folder, removing a date prefix, changing a format, adding a suffix, you will understand immediately why this exists. Color Picker lets you hover your mouse over any point on your screen and immediately capture the color value at that pixel in any format you need, hex, RGB. Designers have known about this for years. Most ordinary Windows users have never encountered it. Peek lets you preview the contents of almost any file, an image, a PDF, a document, a video, without opening the application associated with it. You select the file, press a shortcut key, and a preview window appears instantly. It is, functionally, the quick look feature that Mac users have had for years and that Windows has never officially provided. Text Extractor uses optical character recognition to pull text out of any image on your screen. You take a screenshot of a scanned document, a photo of a receipt, a slide from a presentation, and Text Extractor gives you the selectable, copyable text within seconds. Keyboard Manager lets you remap any key or keyboard shortcut system-wide. If you have a keyboard with a key you never use, or if you want to reassign a system function to a more natural position, this handles it without any third-party software. Awake keeps your computer awake for a defined period without changing your system power settings. If you are running a long process and cannot let the screen dim, you activate Awake. Simple, no setting changes, no reverting afterward. And in April 2026, with the release of version 0.99, 2 new utilities arrived that deserve specific mention. Power Display gives you control over your external monitor's brightness, contrast, and input source directly from the system tray without touching the physical buttons on the monitor itself. And Grab and Move lets you drag and resize any window by holding the Alt key and clicking anywhere on it, not just on the title bar. Both of these address complaints that Windows users have voiced for years. A suite now large enough to replace most of what power users spend money on. All free, all from Microsoft, all absent from every Windows advertisement you have ever seen. Now let me tell you why. Microsoft's fiscal year 2024 annual revenue was $245 billion. Its marketing budget runs into the billions annually. In the same period, Microsoft spent considerable resources promoting Copilot, an AI assistant embedded directly into Windows 11 through television advertising, partnership deals, and a taskbar presence that for many users cannot be removed without navigating deep into system settings. Copilot is a paid feature in its more capable tiers. It drives subscription revenue. It drives cloud usage. It feeds data into Microsoft's AI training and commercial operations. It is, from Microsoft's perspective as a publicly traded company, worth advertising. PowerToys is free. It drives no subscriptions. It solves problems that, if left unsolved, might push users toward purchasing premium third-party software or, and this is the part Microsoft is most sensitive about, toward questioning whether Windows is the right operating system at all. Here is the tension that explains everything. The features in PowerToys are the features that Windows users most frequently say they wish Windows had. And Microsoft's response, for years, has been to allow a small team of its own engineers to build those features quietly on GitHub, distribute them to anyone willing to find them, and then return to advertising a cloud-connected AI assistant to people who just want their file search to work properly. This is not incompetence. Microsoft knows PowerToys exists. Microsoft funds PowerToys. Microsoft signs the executable with its own certificates so that Windows Defender does not flag it as a threat. This is a deliberate strategic decision to treat a core productivity tool as a niche developer resource rather than a mainstream user feature. There is one more layer to this that most coverage misses. PowerToys has an advanced paste feature that includes an optional AI-powered clipboard formatter. It is disabled by default and requires an OpenAI API key to activate, so for the privacy-conscious, it is simply never turned on. But its presence is a signal. PowerToys is being positioned, quietly, at the edges, for a future in which its free foundation becomes the entry point for a paid AI layer built on top. The pattern is consistent. Give away the foundation, monetize the roof. And the people absorbing that cost are not abstractions. They show up on forums every day, and what they write tells you exactly how wide the gap between what Microsoft builds and what Microsoft promotes has become. Go to Reddit's Windows communities. Go to Microsoft's own feedback boards. Read the posts from users who have been on Windows for 20 or 30 years. The pattern is consistent. A user describes a frustration, Windows not behaving the way they want, search returning junk, no way to quickly preview a file without opening the full application. Someone in the replies says, "Have you tried PowerToys?" The original poster has not. They install it, they come back, and what they write next is almost always some version of the same thing. Posts like this appear regularly. One, typical of dozens, reads, "I have been using Windows for 30 years, and I found out about this from a comment last month. Why is this not in Windows by default?" It is a fair question. The frustration in that sentence is not really about a missing tool. It is about a company that has spent decades asking for trust and loyalty from its user base, collecting detailed telemetry about how those users behave on their own machines, and then using that data to prioritize features that serve Microsoft's commercial interests, while the features users actually ask for get quietly routed into an unadvertised GitHub project that most people discover by accident. These are not fringe users. The forums are full of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, experienced, patient users who have followed Microsoft through Windows 95 and XP and 7 and 10, through every redesign and every forced migration, and who now feel, with some justification, that the company has quietly stopped building Windows for them. PowerToys does not fix all of that. I want to be direct about what it does not do. It does not reduce Windows telemetry. It does not remove the Microsoft account requirement. It does not stop forced updates. It does not give you control over the data Microsoft collects in the background. Those are real problems, and PowerToys was not designed to address them. What it does is restore something the core Windows experience has quietly eroded, the feeling that your computer is a tool working for you rather than a platform working for Microsoft. For millions of users who had no idea it existed, that is not a small thing. Before the analysis, let me tell you how to get it, because this should not be hard to find, even if Microsoft has made it that way. There are 3 ways to install PowerToys. The simplest is the Microsoft Store, which is built into every Windows 10 and Windows 11 installation. Open the store, search PowerToys, and install it the same way you would install any application. It is free, it is Microsoft signed, and Windows Defender will not flag it. The second way is Winget, Microsoft's own command line package manager. Open a terminal window and type wingit install, then Microsoft.PowerToys. One command. Done. The third is GitHub itself. Go to the PowerToys repository, download the installer directly from the releases page, and run it. All three routes arrive at the same place: a system tray icon, a settings panel, and 30 utilities ready to switch on or off individually, so you only run what you actually need. The whole process takes under 3 minutes, which makes Microsoft's decision not to mention it to ordinary users even harder to explain charitably. The case for Microsoft's position is not without merit. Many of PowerToys' features involve concepts, rejects, key remapping, color values, zone layouts that would confuse rather than help a user who only uses a computer for email and video calls. Including the full suite in the core Windows installation would add weight to the operating system and potentially create support burdens for Microsoft's customer service teams. There is a reasonable argument that letting power users opt in is better than forcing 24 additional utilities on people who will never use them. And the open source model has real advantages. The GitHub repository accepts contributions from developers outside Microsoft. Some of its most useful features were proposed and built by community contributors. The transparency of the code means privacy-conscious users can inspect exactly what the software is doing. Microsoft signing the executable means security-conscious users do not have to take a risk on an unknown third-party tool. These are real positives. They deserve acknowledgement. But the counter-argument is harder to dismiss. Microsoft's marketing decisions are not accidents. Every feature that appears in a Windows advertisement reflects a deliberate calculation about what drives commercial outcomes. Copilot appears in advertisements because Copilot is monetizable. PowerToys is absent because it is not. That invisibility is not a passive oversight. It is the logical output of a system that optimizes for revenue rather than user experience. The more pointed concern, looking forward, is the advanced pace trajectory. That AI clipboard feature is optional today, but as PowerToys matures toward version 1.0 and beyond, the question of whether its utilities remain permanently free or become entry points into paid tiers is one that users should be watching. Microsoft has a long history of incubating free tools and later integrating them into commercial products. PowerToys, right now, is genuinely useful and genuinely free. There is no guarantee that the relationship will last indefinitely. For now, the honest assessment is this: PowerToys is the best free software Microsoft has ever quietly released. Its current form is trustworthy, capable, and well-maintained. The frustration is not with the tool, it is with the deliberate choice to make its existence something you have to stumble upon rather than something Microsoft tells you about. Microsoft's silence about PowerToys is not a bug. It is, in a precise sense, the product. If this video changed how you think about what Microsoft builds versus what Microsoft tells you about, and if you want to keep finding the things Microsoft would rather you did not know about, hit the subscribe button below. Every video on this channel is built the same way with verified facts, no filler, no agenda, other than the truth told as clearly as we can find it.